but if you want to have a bit of cushioning around, for some a block is nice to have as well. Please grab all of those items, and let's start in a very different way today. Do take your socks off if you've got any on, even if it's quite cold in your space. The reason for that is that we begin standing today. So the only reason to remove anything from your feet is to really allow ourselves to feel the ground underneath. And then, as most of you would be aware of, it becomes quite essential when we step back onto our mat, otherwise we're slipping out of our socks. So I invite you to stand somewhere towards the front of your mat. I still have the same kind of challenge of not moving my left arm, which appears to be my right. So please be mindful that I do mean to lift both arms when I say so. We will begin with the feet at a comfortable distance, and I invite you to just step a little bit from one foot to the other. Finding kind of the sensation that comes up underneath the soles of the feet. If you would like to have a dance with it, that's fine too. But for me, it's more of that idea of feeling the feet on the ground. So once you've had a few steps, we might leave both feet on the ground. We might just roll our shoulders back a little and open the palms of the hands to face forward. If you feel confident to close the eyes, you could, as I invite you to a simple rocking forward towards your toes and then rocking back towards the heels. Now we're keeping the feet completely grounded as we just previously lifted them. And we're just rocking and shifting the weight a little bit forward and back. Allowing our minds to come right down to feel the sensations underneath the feet. Noticing how it feels for you if you have a tendency to lift the toes off the floor, and you might practice that actively for a few rounds as you're rocking back to your heels to peel the toes off the ground. And then being aware as they land when the weight shifts forward. After you've done that a few times, allow yourself to find the space between forward and backward. Just a moment of stillness here as you notice whether your knees have locked, whether they're soft, and finding what is right for you as we begin to rock the body just a little bit from side to side. So again, keeping the feet grounded, but shifting the weight from side to side. And you might notice that you can rely onto one side maybe a little bit more than the other as you're checking in with your own range of movement just across the feet. And also noticing how you're experiencing the sensations underneath the arches and whether the arches of your feet are naturally lifted or rather flattened a little bit. No right or wrong, we're just playing around with awareness. And when from here we come back into center, we won't pause. I will ask you to imagine that you could draw a circle around the arches of the feet. So trying to keep them lifted now, as if there was a coin that you're circling around underneath your arches. And kind of exploring all of the directions we can go into. You might all have a different pace here. Again, no right or wrong, just your own experience. We will pause now and change the direction. As we expose ourselves oftentimes already in the morning to some sort of media, oftentimes our thoughts start racing. Sometimes it's enough just to wake up in the morning and the thoughts are going. I would love you to acknowledge that that can still be the case even in your practice. As we stop gently with the circling, finding now the center for our stance and becoming potentially a little bit more active as we engage now through the feet, as we feel them grounded, allowing the arches to still be active, bringing some strength up into the legs and lightly switching on the glutes. Noticing how your pelvis is positioned. Can you maybe move the pelvis a little and find a centered position for your pelvis as well? So it sits there and holds you from there upwards. If you haven't closed your eyes quite yet, this might be an opportunity. If that's too challenging, have a steady gaze towards the front. While you stand there, begin to notice your breath. I will share with you a translation, a quote from the Bhagavad Gita. The mind is restless, unsteady, turbulent, wild, and stubborn. Truly, it seems to me as hard to master as the wind. Inviting you to set the intention for this practice to observe the mind. Rather linking our practice to the breath. With your next inhalation, you might float your arms up towards the ceiling. With the exhalation, drawing your hands down in front of the heart. With the inhalation, floating the arms back up, maybe now extending your gaze as well. With the out breath, bringing the hands back down in front of the heart. So both arms lifting as you inhale, extending yourself. On the out breath, drawing the hands back down to the heart. We'll do that one more time, this time by holding as we're inhaling, extending both arms up towards the ceiling, lifting the gaze. Taking another sip of air in. And then as you're breathing out, let's draw the hands down through the midline as we soften the knees and just folding down towards the ground. With the in-breath, then let your hands slide up towards your shins and lengthen the spine forward into a half lift position. On the out-breath, fold it down. I invite you now to bend both of your knees and let your hands slide up onto your thighs. Lengthening out through the back. Maybe lifting the tailbone a little as you inhale to open your front. And as you're breathing out, just rounding like you would for a cat. On your in-breath, lifting your tail, open your heart and lift your gaze. And on the out-breath, then rounding back into the cat position. Let's keep that flowing, finding your pace as you breathe in deeply to open your front. And breathing out completely to round your back. Inhaling to open the front body. And out breath to round. Have another 2 rounds just doing that. While your feet are firmly grounded into the floor, into the mat. And hold yourself in the end in that rounded position. From where I'd ask you to push down into your feet. As you straighten your legs, lifting the arms up, coming back to that fully extended position, looking up towards your hands as you're breathing in. And then as you're breathing out, soften the knees again and fold all the way back down towards the mat. Taking an inhale now to lengthen through the spine for a half lift. And as you're breathing out, lower down into a forward fold. Allowing your fingertips to land on the mat, no matter how deep you might have to bend your knees. And we will take our left heel up to the buttocks. And pushing out through that same heel as we're extending the leg back. Before lowering the foot down in towards a lunge. Sliding your fingertips back to align with the front foot and to lengthen out through the spine as we inhale. And then with the exhale, lower your knee down and collapse the head around your back. We will plant the hands down more firmly now. And step the other knee back. As we inhale, lifting tail and gaze. With the out breath, rounding again into the cat. Let's repeat that for 2 more, lifting through the gaze, the tail. And then deeply rounding the back on the out breath. 1 more. Allowing now our spine to arrive in a more neutral position. And extending the left leg back out, keeping the foot on the floor and even lowering the heel of the foot down. Swing the right foot a little bit behind you. And let your right hand rest underneath your right shoulder. While you take an inhale, let's lift the left arm up towards the ceiling, pointing your fingertips right up towards the ceiling and starting to ground down through the outer edge of our left foot. Let us swing this upper arm back and down in front of us. Before extending it up over the head towards the front. So ignoring mine and reaching forward now over the head with your fingertips. from this place, rolling your arm and shoulder downwards, swirling your hands around towards your extended leg, and taking a breath in as you're lifting now your right arm over the head, and then bending deeply over your extended leg. We're in a gate pose. The gaze could be downwards. You could tuck the chin in lightly and lift your gaze up. And we'll come out as we came in. So let your upper arm roll in. Hand returns underneath the shoulder. Your left arm swings back up over the head. Fingers pointing forward. And we'll keep that moving for another round as we swing the arms across, taking a breath in, the right arm over the head for a gate. And then we'll swing around again to the front, lifting the arm again over the head. And one more round. Circle in front of you, swirl your arms, reach the right arm over the head. And then coming back towards the front, this time placing both hands down. You can leave your left leg extended and the toes tucked under. You could also have both knees on the floor now for a plank. While you're exhaling, leave your elbows along the sides and lower down onto the front of your body. Grounding down through the tops of the feet, wave up on the inhale as we find a Cobra. You can keep hands down or lift them off the floor, your choice. Let's stay in our back bend for another in and out breath. Then inhale again. And while you're breathing out, push into the mat. Round your body as we're extending towards the heels into a child's pose. You can keep your arms actively extended towards the front, but you could also soften the arms. Feeling into the palms of your hands. No matter where your hands are, ground them towards the mat. Get a feeling, just as we did underneath the soles of our feet. How does the mat feel underneath the palms of our hands? Allowing a deep, full breath to expand the body out into the sides, down into the thighs. And we will then slide our hands forward, lift our hips, tuck the toes under, and peel the knees off the ground for a downward dog. Please start walking out that down dog as we pedal into the legs. Take a walk forward towards the top end of your mat. When you are arriving there, take a half lift, hands sliding up, stretch your spine long towards the front of your mat. And then soften the knees again as we're breathing out to fold. Allow both knees to bend deeply and slide your hands back down onto your thighs. Push into the thighs so you're lifting a straighter back into a chair pose shape. The hands can release from the thighs if that feels all right, and we touch the palms of the hands together in front of the chest. Feel the weight distributed more evenly through the feet. Kind of remembering with our minds the stance we practiced when we begin. Using the feet like this as you breathe in, push down into the feet, lift both arms up, extending, lifting the gaze. And then return to that same kind of chair pose with the hands at the heart. Pushing down into the feet as you're rising up, inhaling, extending. Exhaling, spread your sit bones, activate your abs, chair pose. Only one more round. Take a breath in as we're extending up. And with the out breath, coming back into the chair. If your arms are happy with that, extend them forward and up for a full chair pose to inhale. And as we're breathing out, we're folding down. Legs can straighten or lengthen. On the in-breath, let your hands slide up to your shins and lengthen your back forward into a half lift. And on the out-breath, holding your forward bend. You can bend your knees again as much as you might need to. So your fingertips can be on the ground or on the support. We will tuck our right heel up towards the buttocks. And then we're extending out with that right heel, the whole leg lengthens. Stepping our foot down onto the mat. As we come up onto our fingertips to lengthen our spine here, we will then lower the knee down to the ground and collapse the upper body over the knee. As we plant our hands down onto the ground, let's step the knee back and come into 3 rounds of cat-cow movement as we inhale to lift tail and gaze. And breathe out to round into the back. Inhaling, tail gaze lifting. Exhaling, deeply round into the spine. One more. Finding a more neutral back. Let your right leg extend out, but keep the foot on the ground and even lower your right heel to the floor. Swing your left foot out and behind you for more stability and place your left hand underneath your shoulder. While we're taking a breath in, let's extend the right arm up towards the ceiling, fingertips pointing right upwards. And from there, swinging the arm backwards and down, only to potentially extend your arm over the head with the palm of the hand now facing down towards the floor. Grounding down to the outer edge of the foot on your extended leg, building that straight line. We will from here roll the shoulder in and forward and swirl our arms around to the other side. We're taking the left arm now over the head and bending over the extended leg into a gate pose. So your arm is extended over the head, palm again facing down. We'll go for a few rounds of moving between these two sides as we roll arm and shoulder down, swirl it around and take a deep breath to lift the right arm over the head again. With the out breath, move around to the other side. Inhale, left arm over the head. And we'll roll it back down on the out breath. Arm lifting, inhale. Exhale, swirl. Inhale, left arm over the head for gate. And here comes our last round, that arm, shoulder rolling over to a supported side plank as you extend your right arm over the head. And let's swirl around. And when we come around to the other side one more time, we're placing both hands down now. Allowing the heel to lift and maybe the right leg stays extended and you come into a full plank, but you could also have both knees on the floor. With the out breath, keep your elbows along the sides and slowly lower down onto the mat. Finding your form here as you ground through the tops of the feet. Inhale, wave up through the upper body. Variation of Cobra that works for you. Keeping your shoulders back and down, the elbows snug in by the side. One more full in and out breath. And in breath. And when you're exhaling, find your way back into an extended child's pose, whether that's fully extension into the arms or the elbows bend, but still allowing the palms of your hands to be touching the mat. With your fingers spread out, again, feel the ground underneath, and you might extend your awareness now to the tops of the feet that are on the floor as well. If your forehead is resting down, you might have awareness about the bare skin of the forehead touching the floor as well. If your arms are bent, extend them again as we come up onto all fours, tucking the toes under and rolling the spine up for a downward dog. Again, begin to walk out through the feet and take the walking movement to get your feet towards the front end of the mat. So you slide your hands up to your shins and lengthen the spine forward one more time on the in-breath. And on the out-breath, folding forward. As we slide the hands back up on top of our thighs, bending the knees, so we're back in that chair pose-like shape, but we're supported with our hands. As we take an inhale here, and with the exhale now, let your right shoulder drop down into the center, looking over the left shoulder. Nothing changes other than that in the shape. You're feeling confident here, you could lean more down into the right hand and take an inhale to lift the left arm. If you lifted that arm, swing it back to place the hand again on top of the thigh. Use both hands to lengthen through your back as you inhale. And then on the exhale, drop your left shoulder down into the center. If you feel it's appropriate, lift your left hand fingertips towards the ceiling and try and follow them with the gaze, maintaining that same stance again. If you did so, swing that arm back and down, place the hands back down onto the thighs and lengthen once more through your spine. We'll push down into both of the feet and rising up with both arms. The gaze is lifting as we're extending our body. And we'll simply bring the hands down to touch together at the heart as we're exhaling. From there, release the arms and open the palms again towards the front. Get back into that stance that you established when we began our practice. So that reconnection and active feet, palms might be open. Allowing your mind to re-engage with the ground underneath, the activation of legs, glutes, and of an openness through the chest. Now, when we take our next breath in, we will lift both arms up again. And as we're breathing out, we're folding back down and forward. On the in-breath now, the hands sliding back up the shins as we're lengthening our spine towards the front. And with the out-breath, then folding again. Landing once more, your fingertips down onto the ground. And if your knees are bent a lot, that's fine. We will once more lift our left heel towards the bottom. Flexing out through the foot as we're slowly extending the leg out long. Landing the toes down onto the ground. And from now on, you will be welcome to simply allow your knee to be on the floor instead. As we're bending the back knee if we don't. Curling up through the spine and lifting both arms while inhaling. So we're ending up in a high lunge. Both arms lifted, the shoulders relaxed, and we're bringing a little bit of a bend into the back knee as we sink down towards the ground. As we inhale, you might want to lift up your gaze. And while we're breathing out, we're bringing the hands through, extending out through the back heel, leaning the torso just about halfway forward, similar to the chair pose. And we're stretching the fingers back with the palms of the hands facing down for a flying lunge. Now, while you're here, you could add an extra challenge and close your eyes. And then drawing back a little bit on the right hip. So we're feeling more balanced and centered, hopefully. Holding that shape. Maybe enjoying the balance. Before we bend the back knee again, lifting both arms again up towards the ceiling. And as we lower the back heel, we're taking both arms out like a warrior two. It's not quite the place in which we will stay. As you're exhaling, you can place your right forearm down to the thigh or point the fingertips down for side angle pose. The left arm might be lifted, extended towards the ceiling. Reaching it upwards right now rather than over the head as you inhale. And with the exhale, then swing that upper arm just gently behind your back, opening further through the shoulder. And if you can look up, tuck the chin in towards the shoulder. While we will hold here, we're grounding a little bit deeper into the front foot and taking our front hand and sweeping that up towards the ceiling, maybe even behind. Exalted warrior shape. We will change that again. Bend your back knee, roll your upper arm in and down. Forearm to the thigh, your fingertips pointing the floor, left arm reaching up towards the ceiling. And then swinging it behind the back if you did before. Lean the weight slightly forward. Reach forward with the right hand. Back into the exalted warrior shape. Bending the back knee, rolling the arm in and down. Returning into side angle, arm extended upwards. And then bring the arm back behind your back. One more time, reach the arm forward as we're lifting into warrior four. And then bending the back knee again as we swirl the arms around. Finding our hands down onto the mat where we're lifting the heel. Coming onto the fingertips here, extending through the spine. With the out breath, soften or lower the knee as you collapse the lunge. Planting the hands down, and you can step to all fours or a downward facing dog. Let us find a slow vinyasa as we inhale, rolling forward into a plank or a kneeling plank. On your out breath, lower down on or towards the mat. You can now choose a Cobra as we had before, an upward facing dog. And in your own time, finding your way back into a puppy With the toes tucked under, hips reaching up and back, or a downward facing dog. And I invite you to hold there. If you're in a down dog, take a look back at the feet, noticing a distance of about hip width. If your knees are off the floor, soften them lightly. And we'll all take a deep breath in now, just to reach our tailbone up and back, even if your knees are on the floor, finding the length of your spine. And then let your shoulders open gently. So as if you're feeling there's space created behind the shoulders. We will now lift our left leg up as we breathe in. Bringing the knee into the chest as we're breathing out and tucking our nose up towards the knee. From there, aiming to land the foot forward in between our hands as we lengthen the spine to the front on the inhale. And on the exhale, stepping the feet down to a forward fold. On the inhale, slide the hands up as we come to a half lift. On the out breath, bending forward. Let us push down into the feet as we're rising up, both arms again lifting up towards the ceiling. Extending the body. And on the exhale, bring your hands to the heart for a chair shape. Use the feet again as we inhale to extend once again. On the exhale, coming back into the chair. We'll do that one more time. Push down into your feet, inhaling, extending. On the exhale, chair with hands at the heart to pause in. Inhale. As we're exhaling, we're twisting our chair to the right. If you can reach, you might place your elbow to the outside of the knee, being mindful that your knees are staying parallel here. You might want to push knee and elbow against each other for deepening of this twist. Any of you who feel like it, you can open your arms out wide, pointing one hand fingertips down, the other one up towards the ceiling. We will come out of this twist by keeping everything the same, but touching the hands back together as we center our back. Back in our chair pose from which we started, lifting a little bit through the heart, engaging gently through the lower abdominals. And then with the next out breath, begin to twist again as we reach the elbow potentially towards the outside of the knee. Finding our stance here. If you find it's appropriate for you, on the next inhale, opening the arms, one hand fingertip pointing down, the other one up towards the ceiling, maintaining the solid stance that might be there. We will now use the feet to push up from into standing. As we rise, both arms are lifting up. And with the out breath, softening the knees and folding back down to Uttanasana, or forward fold. Sliding hands up to the shins as we lengthen the spine forward, inhaling. On the exhale, fold. Again, your knees can be bent as much as you need to, having fingertips on the floor. We're lifting the right heel towards the buttocks. Extending out through the right heel. As we land the toes down onto the ground. Your option to bring the knee to the floor, otherwise bend your knee. Start to roll up through the spine into a high lunge. As we're lifting both arms up to the ceiling. If your knees off the floor, soften it as you settle into the lunge. Also let the shoulders soften. So rather than pulling them upwards or pulling them down, let them be in a relaxed state. And if you feel it's appropriate, you might want to lift your gaze up. As we inhale here, with the exhale, lower the back heel, open your arms out, shoulder height like we would for warrior two. Again, not the place in which we will stay. On the next out breath, could you reach your forearm to the thigh or point your fingertips down for a side angle pose? The same here, let your arm extend up towards the ceiling. Finding a solid stance, front knee aligned with the front toes. We will change that a little as we let the upper arm swing behind our back. And we use the shoulder to come back. If you want to look up, have a light chin tuck there. We will now shift the weight towards our front foot, reaching the left arm up and over the head into an exalted warrior shape. Front knee remains in a bend. We'll begin to bend the back knee as well as we roll that arm forward and down, sweeping the other arm back up towards the ceiling as we breathe in. Back into side angle pose, and the arm again wraps behind the back. Repeating that same movement as we lean the weight forward, sweeping with the left hand fingertips up and back, exalted warrior. And we'll bend the back knee as we roll that in and down, returning into Parshvakonasana, side angle pose, the arm extending to the ceiling. That arm wraps again behind the back as we lightly might lift our gaze. Reaching forward with the left arm and then sweeping it up into exalted warrior. So nothing is changing quite yet. We'll bend our back knee and we swirl that around. Letting then both hands land down either side of our front foot, lifting through the back heel. As we inhale, come to fingertips and lengthen through your spine. And as we exhale, collapse the shape. Your choice of coming to tabletop or downward facing dog. On the next inhale, rolling the spine forward as we find a plank or a kneeling plank. And on your out breath, lower again down onto the mat. Up dog or cobra on your in breath. On your out breath, retreat into puppy or downward facing dog. This is a place again in which we will stay for a few breaths. Start to pay attention mainly to the positioning of your spine. Oftentimes we have a tendency to lean forward and backwards. And for very few people is it possible to extend the legs, guide the heels to the floor and have a neutral spine. For most people, it's beneficial to soften the knees and to just focus on reaching tail up and back. That could result also in a more even weight distribution between hands and feet. Allow yourself to breathe in fully and out slowly. With the next inhale now, lifting your right leg. And with the out breath, take your knee into the chest and tuck your nose up towards the knee. Then landing the foot forward between the hands. As we rise up onto the fingertips for an in-breath. And we're collapsing the lunge for the out-breath. We'll then step the foot forward and rise to a half lift on the inhale. And down into a forward bend on the out-breath. We'll push down into our feet and we're rising up tall, arms extending, gaze extending. And we'll bring our hands back down in front of the heart as we're breathing out. Let your arms release. And if you're standing now at the front of the mat, you might want to step back just a little bit. Placing your hands down onto your hips. Steady your gaze. Feel again the active feet, legs switched on, glutes switched on. Nice and tall stands, crown of the head towards the ceiling. And your gaze might be straight ahead, just in front of you. As we shift our weight very lightly towards our right foot, lifting the left foot forward, pointing out through the toes. Very simple balance. As we begin to flex the foot and point it, flex it and point it. One more time only, and then holding your toes pointing down towards the floor. Holding the foot in this position as if you push down through the ball of the foot only now. Start opening up through your toes. The toes are pulling back, but the foot is pushing forward. And from there, landing just the ball of the foot down onto the mat in front of you. We begin to shift the weight by lifting our back heel off the ground. With both heels off the floor, bring a bend into both of your knees. If this works for you, extend your arms forward from there. Let us lower the front heel to the floor, lifting the back knee up to the front and bending our standing leg as we place the ankle to the top of the thigh, sinking a little bit in. Hands can touch now in front of the heart. And while we breathe in, we straighten the leg, carefully and mindfully landing the foot and releasing the arms. If you have a lack of space in front, you might step back again. Otherwise, you can stay here. Bringing the hands back onto the hips. Feeling the ground underneath as we switch our legs on and rise up through the crown of the head. Shifting our weight just lightly over towards the left. Pointing our right toes out in front. As we try to balance, we begin to flex the foot and point it, flex it and point it. We'll go for one more round, flexing the foot and then pointing it, and we're holding the foot pointed as if we extend out through the ball of the foot. Now we're pulling back on our toes as we spread them out. Holding that in this way as we land the ball of the foot down onto the mat in front of us. We're beginning to shift the weight by lifting our back heel as well. So now both heels are off the ground and we're bending into both knees at the same time, sinking a little bit into the stance. If you like, can you extend your arms forward? We'll land our front heel, lifting up the knee from the back. A bend into the standing leg as we place our ankle to the thigh, letting the knee fall out as we sit that little bit lower if that works for you. And you might bring your hands to touch in front of the heart space. We will release that mindfully again as we lift the knee and carefully land our foot, while also releasing the arms back into a mountain shape. Steady gaze, tall stance. Connect to the feet. Activate one last time through your legs. Keep the palms open, the gaze steady or the eyes closed. And from here, I invite you to soften the knees, to open the arms backwards as you lift your heart and gaze. And from there to dive forward by rolling the shoulders forward and down into a standing forward bend. Now, please feel free to just hold your forward bend like this with the feet on the ground, the fingertips to the floor. If you want to take it deeper, you can lift the soles of your feet one after the other and slide your hands underneath the soles of the feet. Ideally, you would take your toes right up to your wrists. You would even want to lean the weight down into the hands as your head lowers to the space between the knees and your tailbone rises up. Now, from this place, let's turn the elbows to face our legs. And if they are beginning to bend, let them bend in towards your body. That way, we're engaging the arms more. We're allowing our upper back to be free. We will hold here for 3 long out breaths. Aiming to very gently engage on this out breath the lower abdominal muscles. After you've completed these 3 breaths, let your hands come out from underneath the feet. Bend your knees deeply. And just take a seat on your mat. Extending your legs out long at the front. Lifting the arms up in front of you. Turning the toes up to face towards the ceiling. As we inhale. On the out breath, can you draw your hands down to your heart? Curl down onto your back slowly. Releasing the arms down, stepping your feet up onto the mat, realigning your back and hugging both knees to the chest. Maybe a little rocking from side to side. And for some, you could come into happy baby pose, as you might place hands behind the thighs. No matter what, have your knees a bit wider than your torso. Stack your ankles over your knees. And if you want to take it deeper, arms remain on the inside of the knees as you hold onto the outer edges of the feet. No pressure. You could still keep your hands behind your thigh. And if this feels good, you could rock a bit from side to side. Otherwise, We're holding and encouraging our knees to move down towards the ground on our sides. To release, let go, the feet coming in together, the feet releasing to the mat, the arms opening out. And either you stay here and find a constructive resting pose by stepping feet to edges of the mat and dropping the knees inwards. Or you could do the opposite, let the knees fall out and then slide one leg out after the other as we enter Shavasana. Shuffle your shoulder blades a little bit closer. Open the palms of your hands. Let the feet roll out if your legs are out long. Cover yourself. And when you are ready, it's time to steady the gaze or close the eyes. Making sure that the back of the neck is kind of long. Maybe a subtle chin tuck if your head has a tendency to fall backwards. Otherwise, just holding here. With the eyes gently closed or the gaze being steady. Noticing your mind again. Re-engage with its fluctuating abilities. Noticing that the mind might still be stuck in the practice. And see if you can bring it back into the body that is now resting here on the mat. It said the mind is restless, unsteady, turbulent, wild and stubborn. Truly, it seems to me as hard to master as the wind. When we practice asana postures or go for a walk, our mind can be still. We are one with the breath, one with the moment, one with all things. There's peace and joy and oneness. Then our minds click back into gear. We're transported into another realm. The injustices happening around us, our fears and desires must be explored once again. And suddenly we feel the familiar pain of separation. The beauty of our walk, our practice, not even a memory. Our practice can bring us back into the moment. Once again, we're on the path of our walk, shining vision. Once again, we are on the mat. Possibility is realized. There are the two realms we travel between. Caught in the afflictions of a false world. Our practice here teaches us to live in the real one. Mind is as hard to master as the wind. If we try to outthink it or to figure it out, it will forever be like a dog chasing its tail. We are on the path of our walk or in our practice. The mind wanders and we gently bring it back. That is all. The other world, the world of the afflictions, the kleshas, the world in which we wage a perpetual war against reality, is not real. We note it and return to the real. There's nothing to master because there's nothing there. If you would choose to stay in Shavasana for a while longer, please do so. Observing the mind. You could also choose to deepen your breath to conclude the practice with me. As you deepen your breath, you might bring back in some movement to the body, even have a stretch. You could then bend your knees and just roll over to your favorite side for a moment, or even sit up over the front of the body. We'll complete our practice from a seated shape, unless you're staying, of course, in Shavasana. As we touch our fingertips down to the ground on either side of us. Just feeling again that there's a ground underneath our fingers, that there's a ground on which we sit, and that we can reach up tall in this seat. And while we breathe in, both arms float up towards the ceiling as we're extending. And on the out breath, we draw our hands together in front of the chest, maybe lightly connecting the thumbs towards the sternum. A gentle bow of the head towards the heart. Maybe a gentle lift of the heart towards the head. As we unite within, we then extend to each other. Namaste.